Okay, I'm having to record this a second time because for some reason it didn't save my recording. So anyway, so I just finished watching Doctor The Well, and to talk non-spoiler initially, this is definitely the best episode of the series so far, and possibly the best for the Shooty Gatwa era, which is not seeing a lot, I grant you, but this episode, for the most part, apart from some cringy dialogue in places in here, in places. This one was basically, a traditional like base under siege type story, which my God, waited so long for something like this. No political messaging shoved down your throat here and that. Minimal cringy dialogue in places. So yeah, this one I do actually recommend to people. I do actually recommend watching this one. It makes me sad that something like this isn't the norm in the series. It's more of an outlier, and that. But this one was pretty decent, actually. Yeah, it was actually pretty decent. But there's a reason for that. And I'll talk about that in spoilers. Which, speaking of which, spoilers in three, two, one. So this story is a sequel to Midnight, and yeah, the thing is, when that reveal comes, which is in the latter half of the episode. The thing is, the episode was already giving me like midnight vibes. In fact, also references to like the Satan Pit as well in there, and I think possibly that's the reason I enjoy it because it's taking, stuff from previous episodes and putting it in here. In fact, at the very end, I think we even see that Pentalion spacesuit reused again, but repainted at the very, very end of the episode. Um, yeah. But yeah, there's a sequel to Midnight. I was really worried about it though when I was confirmed in the episode. Oh, yeah, it's a sequel to Midnight, and it's the same creature from the first time round. That made me worried because you know, are they going to ruin it? Is RTD going to ruin the original? Thankfully, it doesn't. I was worried it was going to do that thing where just like, oh, let's explain every single mystery about the creature. Thankfully, it doesn't. Although, unfortunately, we do get a glimpse of it. In fact, we get a couple of glimpses of it, but we do get one, significant glimpse of the creature. And I wish we didn't. Like, they can show maybe a shadow or something like that, or something vague, more vague. But yeah, they do actually give us a look at the creature. It is in darkness, but you still can get a decent look at the thing. So that's the only thing I'd see in terms of that. The creature this time around, its ability, like for example, when it was on the like shuttle bus type thing in Midnight, it obviously had incredible strength because it was able to damage the metal and bash it around so much. And in this one, it's basically throwing people around and breaking all of their bones. Um, yeah, but in terms of that, that is a thing that it does. And Shooty Gatwa does cry again in this episode, which was in the next entry. And the thing is, if he didn't cry in every episode, this one I would have allowed with no problems because it's when he talks to the creature and he's remembering like it's being inside his head and everything. Like if he didn't cry in every episode, that would actually be a more impactful moment. But since he does cry in every episode, unfortunately, it kind of ruins that. Unfortunately, it does have a good atmosphere though, and a good sort of creep factor. Not as good as Midnight, nowhere near as good as Midnight in terms of atmosphere or the quality of the episode itself. But the fact that it is pretty much, just a base under siege type story does make it a lot more enjoyable. Unfortunately, it is predictable in places. I mean, it does have some of the cliches as well. For example, we have the commander, which thankfully is fleshed out a little bit, and then we have like the sub commander who is basically, your typical, oh, I don't want to take orders, I want to be in charge type of thing. It's like, yeah, I'm glad I didn't dwell too much on it because it did feel a bit of a cliche at that point. I will say I do appreciate that this one did have a slower build-up to it. It did have a slower build-up. Though it did result in the latter half of the episode, again, feeling a little bit rushed. And that would have been nice if there was a little bit more done and that with it. But, yeah, shame on that part. But, again, it does do well with its little thing. But, yeah, apparently now the creature, the invisible creature, whatever it is, it can't stand its own reflection for some reason, or something like that. I don't know. Yeah, a bit odd that one. Yeah. But yeah, it is a decent episode, and this one I would recommend to people. It's nothing amazing. It's nothing amazing in that, but it is pretty decent, and I wouldn't mind watching this one again. And that there was not, unlike last week's episode that had a pretty good beginning and a decent end and that, but a terrible second act. This one was pretty decent all the way through. Unfortunately, it seems more like the exception rather than the norm, which is the unfortunate. But other than that, yeah, it was a decent episode. And I think Belinda is much better here as well. Like, she feels like a completely different character to how she was in episode 1. At least here she has a bit more characterization compared to episode 2, where I just kind of felt like the characterization was a bit flat. But other than that, yeah, it was a decent episode. But yeah, it does get me worried, like RTD, doing sequels to his original stories and that. Like, thankfully in this case he didn't ruin it. Thankfully. But yeah, I'm kind of in two minds about it. Whether they should have had a sequel, and I don't think it should have personally. But at least it didn't ruin it. But yeah, I'm in kind of two minds about it. But yeah, this one pretty decent. Enjoyed it.